You'll die alone anyway, my mother scoffed, swirling her tea like she'd already buried me. That sentence didn't hit like a slap. Sank like a stone. Not because I believed her, but because for the first time I realized she did. They looked at me not like family, but like a failed investment. No kids. No husband. No legacy. Just me. Hello everyone. I'm Elise. And I thought being a good daughter would be enough. Turns out, they were waiting for a grandchild, not a grown woman. It started 3 days before my 39th birthday. Dad called a family meeting, his voice syrup-sweet like it was some casual dinner thing. But I could feel it. That undertone. The one where you know the knives are polished before the food is served. We sat in their living room. My brother Adam and his wife Jennifer already smiling like winners. My parents cold and upright on the couch. Me. I smiled anyway. Your father and I have been sorting our affairs, Mom began. Wills. Properties. Future distributions. She said it with the grace of someone hosting a wine tasting. Not disinheriting her own daughter. Then Dad cleared his throat. Elise, we've decided it's best to pass on the estate to Adam's side. He has a family to care for. You have your job. Your lifestyle. My lifestyle. Jennifer glanced down, pretending not to smirk. Adam tapped his knee like he'd already cashed the check. I looked at my mother. Her mouth curled. What's the point of giving anything to someone with no legacy? She said. No legacy. Just like that. A life reduced to a womb that never bore. And when I stayed quiet, she leaned forward. You'll die alone anyway. My heart didn't race. It slowed. Like silence before a storm. Then Dad handed me a manila envelope. Sign here to acknowledge your understanding. We'll still make sure you're comfortable, of course. Of course. I stared at that paper. The signature line. And I signed it. But not because I agreed. Because something in me, something cold and ancient, had finally woken up. They disinherited me. But they'd soon beg to be remembered. They thought I was done. That signing the paper meant surrender. That I'd walk away like a good little disappointment. With nothing but thank yous and polite smiles. But silence isn't always weakness. Sometimes it's strategy. I left the house that evening without saying goodbye. The air outside was sharp, cold enough to bite through my coat. But I didn't flinch. I'm Elise, remember? The childless one. The one they didn't think twice about cutting out. What they forgot was that legacy doesn't always come from blood. Sometimes it comes from fire. Over the next few weeks I did what I always do. Worked. Managed. Thrived. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. But I started watching. Adam. He wasn't as successful as he pretended. 3 maxed out credit cards. A second mortgage on a house he didn't fully own. Jennifer. Let's just say she had expensive taste. And poor impulse control. And my parents. That sordid estate? It was sinking. Their retirement fund wasn't enough. Dad's old business had a lien on it. The house. Leveraged to help Adam's failed startup 2 years ago. They needed help. But they thought Adam's children would secure their future. Until the call started. Hey, Elise. Just wondering if you could float us the utility bill this month. Mom acting like we just had lunch yesterday. I smiled into the phone. Oh. I thought I had no legacy. Pause. Static. We didn't mean it that way. Then came the second call. Dad, this time. The hospital bill. They're charging more than we expected. Could you just for now? He sounded tired. Like a man realizing too late that his parachute was packed with paper. I told him I'd think about it. And then I did what they didn't expect. I booked a table at the nicest restaurant in town. Paid in advance. And invited all 4 of them. My parents, Adam, Jennifer. No context. Just a message that read. Let's talk about the future. They showed up dressed in fake humility and desperation. But when they sat down, I slid something across the table. Not a check. A copy of their estate papers, the ones I signed. With a sticky note that said, Don't worry. I brought my own pen this time. Their eyes scanned the papers, then locked on the last page, where I had written in clean, elegant ink. Revoked. Effective immediately. I stood, straightened my blazer, and whispered, You wanted to talk about legacy? Let's start with dignity. The silence at that table wasn't just awkward. It was surgical. Like the air itself had been sliced open and everyone was too afraid to breathe. My father blinked first. Elise, what does this mean? I sat back down, slow and calm. It was my turn now. It means the inheritance clause has been legally nullified. The one I signed? I revoked it 2 days ago. I had every right, because the signature was made under emotional duress. My lawyer agreed. Jennifer leaned forward, her tone syrupy sweet. You can't just take back a signature. Legally, I can. Morally, I tilted my head. I don't owe any of you the explanation, but I'll give you one. Their faces twisted, confusion clashing with panic. Because they knew me. And the version of me sitting in front of them now wasn't the Elise they raised to be quiet. I took a deep breath, letting them stew in the silence a little longer. You looked me in the eye and said I was worthless without a child. You called me a dead end. You mocked me for something I never apologized for, because I never had to. Mom's eyes darted away. Dad looked like he wanted to interrupt but didn't. Do you know how many nights I've stayed up thinking maybe they're right? Maybe I am disposable. I paused, my throat tightening, but I didn't cry. I didn't flinch. I built everything I have without your help. I paid for my degrees. Bought my home. Funded my own retirement. I leaned in. You thought I needed you. But now you need me. And this. I tapped the document. This was your last chance to treat me like more than a walking womb. Adam scoffed. This is about punishing Mom and Dad? I turned to him. And what have you done for them, Adam? Other than bleed them dry. His mouth snapped shut. Jennifer stared at her untouched wine glass, blinking fast. My father stood up then, hands shaking. Elise, what do you want from us? And that's when I realized. They were finally asking. Not telling. Not demanding. Just asking. I stood too. I don't want anything from you. And then I pulled a single envelope from my bag. Except maybe this moment. Inside it, a letter. Addressed. To whom it may concern. From Elise Marie Langford, sole heir of the Langford Trust. Their eyes widened. I smiled. Legacy begins when you stop asking for approval. My heels clicked against the marble as I left the restaurant. Each step echoing like punctuation to a sentence they never saw coming. I didn't look back. But I knew. I had finally become the woman they never thought I'd grow into. The one who walks away first. The next morning the messages started. Mom, can we talk? I didn't mean everything I said. Dad, we're sorry. This has gotten out of hand. Adam, you blindsided them. You should be ashamed. Ashamed? I stared at my phone, then placed it face down on the counter. Because shame was what they taught me to carry. Every missed birthday party because I didn't have a real family. Every silent meal where my choices were the punchline. Every smirk, every side-eye, every, when are you finally going to give us a grandchild? They dressed it up as concern. But it was cruelty in Kashmir. And still, I never asked them for a thing. Till now. At exactly 4:12 p.m., I sent one final text to our family group chat. Don't contact me unless it's through legal counsel. Any future financial requests will be redirected accordingly. And as for legacy, mine's already in motion. Then I turned my attention to what mattered most. I drafted the first grant under the Langford Women's Fund. A $100,000 scholarship for women over 35 returning to school. Women who, like me, were told they were too late. Too barren. Too much or not enough. My lawyer smiled as I signed the final documents. I have to ask, why now? I looked at her, a younger woman, maybe 30, sharp eyes but tired shoulders. And I said quietly, because the women before me sat down when they should have stood. And I almost did too. She nodded. Stiffly. And then came the breaking point. 2 days later I got a call from the hospital. My father had been admitted. Heart trouble. My mother left me a voicemail. Her voice, cracked open and unfamiliar. Elise, please. We don't have the money. Just come. I didn't. Instead I sent a private nurse to handle his case, paid in full. And a bouquet of white lilies to the hospital with a card that read, I'm childless. Not heartless. Sometimes the deepest cut is kindness with boundaries. And sometimes the truest legacy is showing them you never needed to scream to be heard. The nurse told me he cried when he read the card. Not from pain. From realization. That love given freely has power. But love withheld when earned and denied can hollow out a soul. Mom didn't respond to the flowers. But she sent a message that evening. We never meant to hurt you. You've always been different. Different. They always said it like a flaw. Like I'd been born missing a piece they needed in order to love me fully. But I wasn't missing anything. I was simply no longer shrinking. That weekend I visited the old house. Not for them. But to stand in front of it. To see if the place where I once begged for acceptance still held power over me. It didn't. The siding was faded. The garden neglected. I watched through the car window as my mother opened the front door. Slowly. She didn't see me. But I saw her. The proud woman who once told me I'd regret not building a family. Now standing in the doorway of a crumbling legacy. With no one else showing up. Adam had stopped visiting. Jennifer too. Turns out the people they'd chosen to favor had only favored them as long as the money flowed. No. The stream had dried. I didn't get out of the car. Didn't wave. Didn't approach. I simply sat there for a moment watching her retreat back inside. Then I opened my journal, the same one I'd been writing in since I was 17, and scribbled a single sentence. Some roots rot from the inside long before the leaves fall. The next morning I received a letter. Handwritten. No return address, but I recognized the script. My father. Elise, you were right. We were wrong. Legacy isn't about blood. It's about choice. We chose poorly. If you never speak to us again, I understand. But if somehow you read this, I want you to know you were always enough. Love. That. I folded it slowly. Not crying. Not shaking. Just breathing. For the first time in years I felt no urge to prove myself. Because truth doesn't demand an audience. And forgiveness doesn't always require a response. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is nothing at all. I didn't write back. Not out of anger. But because the version of me they hurt was already gone. And the woman I'd become didn't need closure. She was the closure. Still, the past has a way of circling back when you least expect it. A few weeks later, I was invited to speak at a women's leadership summit. The keynote topic? Reclaiming worth in spaces that never offered it. I stood before a crowd of 300. Executives, students, single moms, survivors. Every seat taken. Every eye watching. I wasn't nervous. Because this wasn't performance. It was truth wrapped in breath. I was told I was incomplete because I never became a mother. Told I was a waste of a legacy. That love, inheritance, dignity, were earned only by reproduction. I let the silence land. I signed away everything once. Then I signed it back. Not to reclaim wealth, but to reclaim me. People stood. Some cried. A few just stared like they were seeing themselves for the first time through my voice. After the speech, a woman approached me, gray curls, warm eyes. My daughter sent me your talk. We haven't spoken in years, she said, trembling. I didn't understand her life choices. But no. I think I want to. That night, I sat in my quiet apartment, the city buzzing just outside my window. I lit a candle, opened a fresh page in my journal, and wrote, "Your legacy isn't what you leave behind. It's what you survive." Then came a knock on my door. I opened it. Alone. Disheveled. Hollow. Elise. Mom and Dad, they've put the house up for sale. Everything's falling apart. They're not speaking to each other. I didn't know who else to come to. He looked smaller than I remembered. Not physically, just deflated. Like the weight of his own entitlement had finally collapsed on top of him. I stepped aside. "Come in. I'll make coffee." He blinked. Hesitated. "You're not angry?" I looked at him. "I'm not angry, Adam. I'm done." We sat across from each other, two adults who had grown up in the same house, but lived in very different versions of it. He asked how I'd built the foundation. How I kept going. I didn't brag. Didn't preach. I just said, I stopped asking for permission. That's where it starts. And in his silence I saw it. The flicker of someone who might finally be ready to listen. Adam stayed for 2 hours. No demands. No defensiveness. Just questions. The kind of questions people only ask after life has stripped away their pride. "How did you know it was time to walk away?" he asked, his voice cracking. I stirred my tea and said gently, "When silence starts to feel safer than family dinners. That's your answer." He nodded slowly. No denial this time. And then he did something I never expected. He apologized. Not the half-hearted kind. The real kind, raw, unvarnished. I let them use me. And I let them use you as a mirror, to feel better about my failures. For a second the air between us shifted. The past didn't vanish. But it loosened its grip. When he left I didn't feel lighter. But I felt seen. And that was new. Later that night I got an email from a journalist. Subject line: Langford Legacy Fund. Quiet air changes dozens of lives. Apparently, one of the scholarship recipients had written about me in a viral essay. The world was starting to notice what my family never had. That I had quietly become the architect of something powerful. Not in spite of being childless, but because I learned to mother my own damn self. The next morning I received another letter, this time from an attorney. It was from my parents. An invitation to discuss a potential restructuring of their will. No threats. No expectations. Just a note. We understand if you decline. But if you're willing to meet, we'd like to do so with respect this time. I stared at the letter for a long time. Then I picked up my pen. And I wrote back just one sentence. Respect should never be conditional. I'll come, but not to rescue, only to witness. We met in a public space. Neutral ground. They looked older. Softer. Less like gods on a pedestal. More like people who had finally fallen to earth. They didn't beg. Didn't posture. They just talked. Like humans. I listened. But I didn't make promises. At the end, my mother looked at me with tears in her eyes and whispered, "You became everything we couldn't understand." I nodded. You never had to understand me. You just had to see me. And now they finally did. We didn't hug. There was no dramatic embrace. Just a quiet moment, hands folded on a coffee shop table. And for once no one trying to rewrite the past. I left that meeting without anger. Without sadness. Just peace. 2 weeks later I finalized a new directive with my estate planner. The Langford Women's Fund would now be endowed to run for 3 generations. Fully independent. No family hands. No strings attached. I wasn't passing down china sets or vacation properties. I was passing down possibility. And that, to me, was the definition of legacy. I never responded to Adam's follow-up texts. Not out of bitterness, but because we said what needed to be said. Sometimes the cleanest closure is no more conversation. As for my parents, they sent one final letter. No request. No manipulation. Just a sentence. We hope your legacy forgives where we couldn't. I tucked the note in the back of my journal, next to that early entry that once read, I am too much. I am not enough. I crossed that line out, permanently, and wrote instead, I am exactly who I needed to be. Months passed. One crisp autumn evening, I hosted a dinner in my small but sunlit home. Just close friends. Women I'd met through the fund. Laughter. Glasses clinking. No judgment. No performance. Someone toasted me that night. To Elise. A woman who proved you don't need a child to leave behind something beautiful. I didn't cry. But I felt it. The quiet unraveling of years of shame stitched into my skin. Later, after everyone left, I stood alone at the window, watching the leaves fall. I wasn't thinking about who didn't love me right, or who finally saw my worth. I was thinking about the girl I used to be, the one who waited for applause in a room built to stay silent. I whispered to her, "You did it." No fanfare. No noise. Just truth. And a legacy built from it.